Alright, let's finish this analysis. Bloom Energy. Of course, the main video will be on the main channel once the analysis is finished, so more just behind the scenes of the look at the moment. Yeah, I've got the business overview section here as always. Looks pretty standard. If anyone saw the stock price actually yesterday, went crashing down. Yeah, massive drawdown yesterday and again today. So initially I was actually looking at this trade as a short, which is quite funny because now it's down 26% and down at least I'd say about 20% when I started looking at it as a potential short, which is a bit annoying, but is what it is. But now maybe it could flip to, if it comes down a bit more, might be good, become a good entry point for a long. But that's what happens with these kind of volatile stocks, to be fair. But yeah, quickly go run, do something, and then probably get into the stream.
I came to the United States with 2 suitcases, $200, and I was willing to do anything at all to make sure that I made a life for myself because there was no way to go back. I was a security guard. I took notes for the disabled. I flipped burgers at Burger King. I had $200. I had to find a way of paying my tuition.
In the hot seat today, we have Nikesh Arora, the CEO at Palo Alto Networks. They have a market cap of $225 billion. Nikesh is one of the most respected operators in technology.
I think the long-term token pricing should be 1/10 of what it is today. Mythos, I think, ends up being an accelerant to cybersecurity. In technology, you miss one trick, you can survive. You miss 2 tricks, you're partly impaled. You miss 3 tricks, you could be obsolete.
Ready to go? Nikesh, last time we did a show, I was 22 hours into a 24-hour fast, and I listen back now, and I just think, my word, you had the audacity to be with one of the OGs of this business and be hangry. Like, I was hangry with you and short temper.
Well, the good news is I told you earlier when we were chatting, I have total memory loss. I have no recollection of what I said and what we talked about, so I have to go back to listen to it. Just happy to be here.
It was a great show. We got on blissfully well. It was wonderful. I don't know what that was about.
I think we should stop doing podcasts remotely.
Oh God, I agree.
I think you should force people to come in here.
Well, so I actually do.
Good.
And the nice thing about Size is they do.
Good.
But the only challenge is they actually sometimes come quite jet lagged because they come for the day.
That's true.
And that's a little bit tough.
But then maybe you should do it at 11 p.m.
Maybe.
Yeah, if you take people from California, it's perfectly nice time for them at 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. Maybe you need to.
And maybe I need to adjust. Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
maybe.
the selfish one. You know, say Mark Andrew.
Teach me, Harry.
Do you know what?
I'm here to learn. Teach me.
The audacity of podcaster.
That's all right.
No, but can you explain that to me?
Yeah, look, I've been listening to some of your podcasts and I've been paying attention to what happens to the market because I want to understand where all this settles down. Not just because I want to understand it, but it also impacts how I build my own business, right? So you got these phenomenal frontier models, and they keep sort of leapfrogging each other. Every few days, there's a net new model that's delivered by OpenAI or by Google or by our friends at Anthropic. And the question becomes, okay, fine, these models are moving at this pace. What do I need to build? What do I need to do with these models? And as we came to that Mythos moment when everybody was busy chasing Mythos, and that was kind of important, you realize even the best model has a high false positive rate. But for some reason, in the consumer space, we don't seem to care. I was talking to my sister this morning, so I just went to ChatGPT and asked all these questions. It was very helpful. So I guess what happens is the consumers are way more tolerant of false positives because just it's kind of always the person in the middle, right? There's always somebody who's understanding what the model says and making their own judgment whether they believe the model or not. And somehow people get rid of some false positives. Somehow people don't care about the false positives. Sometimes people believe the false positives. So the consumer is highly tolerant on this notion of false positives and doesn't seem to distinguish, and it just seems to get better and better. I literally had Gemini produce an investment memorandum for something I was looking at. I looked at it, it looked pretty accurate. Give or take, I tweak a few things, but it seems passable. So on the consumer side, it's a breadth issue, right? It wrote an investment memorandum for me, which is cool. I would have had to hire a banker and a bunch of investment analysts. It would have taken me days, and I did it in 4 minutes. So the breadth is there, which means it's my go-to place. And as you know, in consumer, if you become the go-to brand, talking about brands, it's hugely beneficial, right? Whether it's YouTube, that's the only place to go look for streaming video, or Google, that's the only place to go do a search. It becomes hugely sort of multiplicative from a distribution perspective. So our frontier model friends are chasing the consumer brand, and the false positive doesn't matter. On the enterprise side, false positives matter a lot. They matter because if you imagine a future where an agent's going to make independent decisions and act on it, you have zero tolerance for false positives. Now, take Waymo. In my view, Waymo is the biggest agentic product that is out there because guess what? We've replaced a human being called a driver, right? All decisions are made by AI machine learning. It decides when to turn, when to stop, what to do. But think about the amount of edge case training it took to replace that human agent with effectively an AI-driven agent. I don't know, tens of billions of dollars. So that's what it takes to take one use case and train the hell out of it. And if you think about what happened there, they could have used the equivalent of an AI model, But then they build so much context and intelligence and edge case training and proprietary data to make that happen. That data is not available on the internet. You can't stick the next model of Anthropic into your Mercedes and say, okay, drive me home. It's not going to be able to do it. And that's the depth issue, right? Because you need the depth of the context and understanding and the intelligence around the model to make it useful for the truly agentic use case. So I just think there's this constant tension. The frontier models want the consumer attention because that drives post-training for models. It drives the consumer brand of the model. On the other hand, the real enterprise revenue is going to come from use cases that require a lot more context. The one sort of standout use case we all know is coding, right? Coding is a universal activity. Everybody does it. So everybody's data is helpful in training the model. And that becomes sort of a large enterprise application. Hopefully there's a few more out there. But I think that's the tension that I wrote about.
When you think about the workflows and the way that enterprises are engaging with AI today, and specifically models, what extent do you think we will be locked in a frontier model dominant world versus the majority of enterprise workflows can be done with open source and we will be more cost efficient moving towards them most of the time?
I think more than half the enterprises are still not getting it right on the use of AI perspective. I think we're still busy trying to incorporate AI into our current business practices. So how do I take what I do today, use a little bit of AI, get marginally more efficient because I don't want to do this the old way? I think the opportunity is to rethink your workflow fundamentally with AI. That's where the true benefit's going to come. I think the winners in the long term will be people who actually rethink their companies with AI, not people who adapt their current workflows marginally with AI.
How can you do that if you're an enterprise? We have thousands of CEOs of big enterprises that listen. That sounds great. What do I do? Do I do a brainstorming session?
No, I think like there's going to be perhaps 2 or 3 different categories. Like one category is, let's take the workflows of today. We have workflows around ERP, we have workflows around sales team management, we have workflows around human resource management. There are existing workflows which have been SaaSified, as in some software company decided we all have common processes. Let me build a container where these common processes can be marginally customized by enterprise. They can code their workflow into my SaaS application and we're off to the races. Now, that workflow required a lot of human judgment and human interaction. The software is not intelligent. It's been coded, right? You define input, you define output. I do the input, I know what the output I'm going to get. The idea is imagine workflows where, in the hiring process, most of your workflows are containers. Imagine where AI actually is helping you make judgments. If I put every CV into AI and says, these are 20 people you should interview, look at the CV, you should ask this person these following questions, sends a note to Harry saying, interviewing this person, ask the following 10 questions because your 3 other colleagues only asked the following 5. We needed no false positives as a human being. So AI could be hugely helpful in informing and making the process more intelligent. But that requires us to give up human control and let AI do 80% of the thinking for us. And that's not how we're doing it right now. All we're doing is, let's take this invoice, let's scan it, abstract the data, put it into AI and say, look at that, it's happening 20% faster.
Do you think we are willing to give up that human control? You see cases like Meta today where I think 1,700 people have signed a petition that they are unwilling to let it track their mouse and keystroke behavior. We are seeing resistance to giving the data.
Orthogonal points. I think 2 different points. I think mass collection of data to inform AI is a little dangerous because people see the outcome of what that's going to happen, right? And I've heard of companies where people are, using cameras to track people folding laundry and ironing clothes because they want to be able to train physically in the future to do those things. So that part aside, I think on the enterprise side, we can actually run a business much more effectively and efficiently if we decide where we are willing to relinquish control to AI. Perfect example, marketing, right? Anything that is required to train a marketing model is already out in the public domain. By definition, marketing is public domain, right? If you didn't market it, it's not in the public domain. So I have the best training data in marketing. I don't need to train an AI model with more marketing content. I may need to train it for tone of voice and what my brand is. And I'm pretty sure an AI model, if I throw my marketing collateral into it, will tell me, this is not consistent with your brand. If I look at all the things we've been talking about the last 10 years, I think some people have done that. They've actually analyzed earnings scripts of companies and said, the last 20 years, what has company X done? And when does the CEO start getting away from a topic because perhaps it's not going so well? So this is really smart. They can do that stuff. So it's the best marketing training database in the world, the frontier models. Why do I need 400, 600 people in marketing? Because my biggest problem in marketing is I have 600 people, but I'm not sure they all fully understand how to consistently deliver my tone of voice, my value proposition, and how not to break my brand by having different collateral in the public domain.
You have 600 people in marketing.
Give or take, on 21,000 people. Well, it's not going to be 600.
No, what is it going to be?
I don't know. My rule of thumb is that in the next 3 years, we'll probably have half the people in G&A type activities in companies. Things like marketing, things like finance, things like HR, because there's a lot of process management there. And a lot of that process management can be made more intelligent using some version of an adapted future AI application, for lack of a better word. So SaaS applications will give way to AI applications. The difference being SaaS applications have no opinion, AI applications will have opinions. And that's a fundamental rethink we need from a workflow perspective.
Can you just help me out? AI applications will have opinions. What does that mean in terms of how you use them, in terms of the output that they have?
Everything, right? Like you're a scholar, whether you want to call it an AI assistant, AI marketing assistant, AI HR assistant, is going to say, I looked at your copy, it sucks. That's not good enough. It's not consistent with the tone of voice. Here's what I would recommend. That has an opinion. That'll make my average employee much smarter than they were today. Then I don't need so many of them because they're doing most of the work for you.
What would you say to the people that say you're wrong? We won't see that halving of those functions, and actually marketing teams will create more copy, more content, be in more places.
No, I think the places where people could be wrong is how many technical resources we need in the future. I think we need more, not less. I think there's this fallacy people believe we're going to have less people working because AI is going to take over our jobs. I don't believe that. I think what's going to happen is you can't imagine the number of people on my team who want more technical resources, more AI savvy resources, because they want to do exactly these things. They're saying, well, I've got an amazing project to transform marketing. I've got an amazing project to transform HR. What do you need? Oh, I need more people who understand how to prompt frontier models, build harnesses, bring proprietary data into play, bring moats. I need more compute, more storage, because I want to learn everything. So I think we're going to need more technical resources. I think we're going to need more sales resources. Because if your product's really good, you need more people to go out there and cover the universe, because not enough people know about it. I'm in Europe. I met 20 customers last week. I still see half of them don't know all the stuff we have. I'm like, dude, we've been around for 20 years. Why is my team not out there pounding the pavement, telling them everything we do? And the problem is not enough time in a day because I'm too busy dealing with some arcane piece of software at work, which I have to go feed. Well, if I had that software be really intelligent, it'd tell me what to do.
In terms of wanting more technical resources, tokens I would put in the more technical resources camp. How do you think about effective token allocation today? You're seeing very different camps, from your Metas and Ubers and Microsofts who put in budgets to your free-for-all, be creative. How do you approach it?
Look, I know this whole world of token maxing has kind of gone topsy-turvy with the whole conversations around how many tokens people are using. The challenge right now is 90% of the enterprise employees are not AI savvy. They're not. They have to learn. I can't send them to university. There's no course you can take at any school anywhere. They have to be able to learn of their own. I think we're back to a Darwinian moment where everybody has to figure out who's really good. Now, you've seen people like Brian Armstrong and Jack Dorsey go out and say, I'm going to decimate my organization and I'm going to start building from scratch. And they've gone to some version of 30, 40% less people because they've figured out there is no redemption. I can't train these people. I'm going to just find the people who are going to come in and help me do this stuff. That's one model. The other model is sort of gradual. We've been hiring people only through hackathons now, right? And we see natural attrition of 2%, give or take a month. And we just replace them with people who actually are AI savvy people we hire from hackathons. Give me 12 months, I'll have sort of transformed 20, 25% of my team. Give me 3 years, I'll have hopefully enough AI savvy people working at Palo Alto. So there are two different ways to get there. I think part of what you're seeing in the token maxing world is people are learning, people are experimenting. The risk is your smartest employee who knows how to use AI really well could be using 20 times the tokens that an average employee uses. And if you get into this whack-a-mole moment saying, oh my God, I'm going to stop people spending too many tokens, you actually will hurt the best AI savvy people more than you will hurt the average employee.
And by the way, I think the best talent will want to go where they will be best equipped with the most expensive frontier models, the biggest budgets. I think that will almost be like an employee benefit for a while.
Yes, possibly. But I think part of the challenge is, right now, everybody's experimenting on everything. and you have to figure out what is it that I need to build as an enterprise and what can I get off the shelf. Right? If I can get an AI-based thinking application that does marketing for me, I don't need to build it. It's a generic problem everybody needs to solve. I can tweak it, I can customize it just the way I did with SaaS applications, but I don't need to build mine from scratch. So I've made sure that everything my team is building is proprietary to us. This is where do we have unique, distinguished knowledge that we bring to bear, which nobody else can do on the outside. Let's put that, let's package it, let's use it. Where it's going to be a generic AI application 12 months, 24 months from now, let's just wait.
So you have a free-for-all on tokens, so to allow your teams to do the best?
We have a use judiciously model for tokens. It's not a free-for-all. Free-for-all sounds like you can go token max the hell out of it. We have to use it judiciously, and we keep track of it to see what people are doing. And if we find somebody who's using it well, we won't constrain them. If we find somebody's gone a little off the top, over the top, we'll find a way to cap it.
Benioff said the other day that he spends $300 million on Anthropic a year for his devs, and that works out to be about 3.8% of developer salary spend average. If it stays there, the valuations of Anthropic and OpenAI are grossly overvalued. And if it moves to 20%, they're actually very undervalued. And if it becomes what Brandon at McCaw said, which is we'll spend as much on tokens as we do on salaries, they're grossly undervalued. Grossly undervalued. I want to talk about where you think % of developer salary spend on tokens will be in 3 years.
That's still a narrow lens for me. If I step back today, there's not enough compute for what the world is demanding. Unequivocally not enough compute, right? You can't buy compute. Compute is costing 2 to 3x or 4x more than it used to cost 2 years ago. There's not enough compute. That scarcity of compute and that excess cost required to build and deliver compute, which allows us to go make AI useful, is causing the constraint and forcing pricing, right? Because, and interestingly, I think more than half of the compute is going to feed the consumer, which is a fundamentally loss-making entity right now. Like, I don't think any of the frontier models make any money in trying to get you and me to use ChatGPT or, Claude or Gemini every day. It's free. That's a lot of compute. Imagine there's billions of people around the world using for all kinds of queries every day. That's sucking away half the compute, which is making no return. Guess where the pressure goes? The pressure goes on the other half of compute, which is being used for coding in enterprise applications. So now you're saying enterprise applications coding have to pay until we build transaction models or advertising models on the consumer side because they're not ready. Now, you can say, well, that happened in search too, right? Google search was around. That happened to YouTube. People used a lot of YouTube, a lot of compute, but it wasn't paying for itself. The problem is the compute requirements and the cost is now 10x of that when we were in that era versus today. So that's forcing token prices to go up. I think the long-term token pricing should be 1/10 of what it is today. When that happens, you will see that people will consume more. You can decide if 3.8 or 15.8 is not sure we can tell the answer right now because pricing will move very drastically in the next 3 to 5 years. I think at some point in time...
So you think we'll see dramatic reductions in token pricing?
I think so. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we will see reduction in token pricing. I think at some point in time, the consumer use of AI will get constrained by these frontier AI companies because they have enough post-training data, more than they need, and each user is inherently unprofitable in their activities they do on frontier AI models.
Do you not think they just build advertising engines like OpenAI is doing now to pay for that business?
That's an interesting question. It has to come from somewhere. When I started Google in 2004, we were 2% of the global advertising revenue, and global advertising revenue was estimated between $500 or $600 billion. I think online is about 70% by last count of total advertising revenue. And I don't think the overall number has changed by more than 3% a year or 5% a year. So I don't think the total advertising pie is going to increase. We've already taken away 60, 70% of the advertising pie in the online world. Unless you tell me there's going to be an explosion at the top where more people are going to spend more money in marketing, that money that you're hoping to fund consumer AI from advertising will have to come from current advertising revenues. So I don't think that changes the equation drastically to make the consumer profitable. I do think there's an opportunity that AI ends up taking more transaction revenue, which has not been into the purview of AI.
Can you explain that to me?
Well, think about the marketing chain, right? Like we do advertising. Advertising is inherently efficient. What's the best conversion rate you get in online advertising, you think?
1.5%.
That's fine. The best of breed is 7 to 10%.
Wow.
Sometimes, but the average is probably 1.5 to 2%, which means 85 to 90% of your marketing is wasted, right? So now if you get really smart, you have memory, you have context, and you get smarter in targeting Harry when he's trying to buy something out there in the world, then your conversion rate goes up, right? If you look at the entire value from the time you decide to buy something till the end, you get the product. You take the case of consumer goods. Today, I want to say the cost of consumer goods is probably in the 5 to 8% of total, list price. The 92% is distribution and marketing. It's highly inefficient. So you could imagine a world where AI makes marketing really efficient, and you get more dollars coming from traditional marketing into the online world because it's coming in the form of transaction.
If tokens get cheaper,
yes,
why are we not seeing frontier models get cheaper? We all thought that this would be cheaper, this would be cheaper.
Well, right now they're figuring out that all your frontier model companies are value maxing, not token maxing. They're raising money at $1 trillion. At some point in time, they realize, oh my God, where's the next $100 billion of compute going to come from? Financial markets are not going to bear the cost of another $100 billion at $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion because I'm going to need it again the following year. So you say, well, I need to build a sustainable business model which starts showing some degree of gross margin profitability. The only lever they have is to take the fastest growing thing that they have in their portfolio from an economic perspective and charge us more for it. That's where you get the price of tokens from. I think the price of tokens is high. Now, you can imagine if the price of tokens is high, every technologist is trying to figure out how do I make my compute more efficient, right, in the future. So I'm sure we'll see a whole bunch of advances in the world where memory and compute are going to start getting used more efficiently from a modeling perspective. And I still believe I don't need Fable 5 or Mythos 5 to do 90% of what people do with AI today. Why is the last model not good enough for certain tasks?
I think unwavering is. I think the model overhang in terms of capabilities, and especially consumer and most enterprise demand. But the models from 2 years ago were good enough for most of the queries that we asked.
That's right. The problem is they were inefficient from a compute perspective.
Totally.
Right? So you're seeing the efficiency come in. The problem is the cost of R&D is now being sort of spent in terms of what the tokens have to pay for. So I think token prices come down. I think the amount of compute that we need is going to be huge the next 10 years. I think the frontier AI models are in a position to capture a significant amount of the future economic value of the use of AI.
Everyone is fundamentally looking at the stack, and this is me being very open as a venture investor, but that's why the show's been successful. And I'm just saying what every venture investor feels. We're all looking at it going, oh Jesus, I have no idea where value is accruing. And you've got you've essentially got infra, which is kind of top, and then you've got models and apps to be totally
Look, infra's making money. Infra is more expensive than it's ever been. That's you're seeing $1 trillion market caps in the infra space because of the scarcity of compute and this need for speed.
Do you think we're in an infrastructure bubble like people think or suggest?
The question which I don't know the answer to, and you can tell me, so you spend more time with people here, I have to go do my day job, is at what point in time does physics kick in and we just can't produce the compute as fast as we want to? While the infrastructure people are gearing up for large amounts of capacity, large amounts of demand on the infrastructure side, and you come to a point where it says, you know what? It's only so many data centers we can build. There's only so much energy we have.
Well, I mean, now
there's only so many
shortages of copper. Do the Panthalassa, which is building data centers at sea. We've got Elon building them in space. I mean,
So I think there may be a digestion period at some point in time when we think the demand for compute is there, but the capacity to execute is now limited by physics, and the infrastructure players have built up too much capacity for this demand. Now, I don't know when that rationalizes. Maybe it rationalizes and causes us to go think about a different sort of time frame for putting all this compute out. That doesn't take away for the need of compute. We'll still want as much compute as we can deliver, as fast as we can deliver. I think some of the model companies have outstripped anybody else's ability to build frontier AI models of that capacity at that speed in the training. So I think you are seeing perhaps a settling down of who's going to be the frontier model player in the future. The question becomes, in the economics, what value accrues to the model? What value accrues to the application layer, as you said it? And I think the application layer is a simplistic term, because for the first time, you have memory in applications. Applications understand context. They understand context as specifically as to what you want, what I want. You're seeing that in the consumer space. That has not yet come to the enterprise space, funnily enough. I think that shows up in the enterprise space, which means the demand for compute and memory goes up on the enterprise side. Like how many, I haven't used all the coding models myself, but over time, these coding models have to get really smart about understanding individual context of enterprises and humans. That's how they'll be more effective and more efficient. For that, we're going to still need more compute and more memory. So I think that'll start defining where the value accrues. I think the value gets shared between frontier models and the context that gets created in enterprise play. I think the frontier models are fully understanding that this is where the gap is. I suspect the frontier AI models, if I had a crystal ball, they will spend a lot more time the next year or two building memory around consumption.
Building memory around consumption. What do you mean, like expanding context windows?
More than that, if you look at the consumer interaction that you have with your favorite frontier model, right? It's starting to remember, oh, you asked about this yesterday, you asked about that. Should I take the question you just asked me in the context of everything I know about you? Or should I just limit the answer to as if I don't know anything about you? Now, that having context of what I said to you over the last 30 days, or last 60 days, 90 days requires you to store a lot of information. It requires a lot of personalized interaction that needs to have. Now, if you want to maintain your moat with Harry and Nikesh in the future, the more context you have about me, the easier it becomes for you to give me the answers in the future. And as you start building context on a user basis, you create stickiness, and that becomes your moat.
To what extent does Mythos cannibalize a business for you? To what extent does it make a business for you?
Mythos ends up being an accelerant to cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I think what happened when you saw Mythos came out, it demonstrated that all the training we've been giving these models on how great code is written, the models were able to turn around and say, well, I also know how to find bad code. So what happens is you point the gun the different way and the model says, oh my God, look at all this code that you have. There are so many flaws in it. As we talked about, the challenge is, like every model, it also suffers from false positives. So if you're an offensive actor and I point the model against, let's just say, 20 VC enterprises, and I go look at everything you've done, somebody's left a WebSocket open, somebody's done some mess up with IP addressing, et cetera. So it finds the flaws outside in. That allows the bad actor to go figure out how can they daisy chain vulnerabilities and get into your infrastructure. It's not good enough from a defensive perspective because I can't use the model and say, go take every vulnerability you found and build a patch and go patch my system and protect me. Because well, guess what? It's going to patch 30% of things which are not wrong. Who knows what that's going to do to blow up your infrastructure? So when Mythos came, we looked at it, we treated it with respect, we ran it against our code, we discovered it finds bad stuff much faster than humans can. We found in 6 weeks what would have taken us 5 to 6 years. So we got it. We ran around, we patch it, but Cloud Code helps build the patch, but you still have to run it through human evals, through testing, through production testing, to sandboxing, to see, does this patch break anything in the infrastructure? Only then, after 6 weeks, we were able to go patch everything. Now, so what does this mean? This means that every enterprise better fix their stuff faster. Because if I point the next generation of models against your infrastructure, it's going to find security flaws, security vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, things that you've not been paying attention to. So it creates a bit of an urgency on the parts of the customers to improve their cybersecurity posture, which I think generally is a good thing for cybersecurity companies.
This is not fundamentally bad. Like when we just summarize what you just said, it allows you to weaponize bad actors to find holes, but isn't good enough to provide the solutions.
Well, look, the solutions are there. Solutions are there. The challenge is sometimes getting the attention and focus of the customer saying, listen, I got to go fix my stuff because it's important. What this has done is it lit a fire under the security practitioners around the world saying, this thing is not good. This is going to weaponize the bad actors. I better make sure my defenses are in place. Now remember, the way cyber defense is done is it's fundamentally just cybersecurity is two fundamental things, right? One thing is if it's bad and I'm at the gate, I'll stop it, which means you have to have somebody at the gate. Now we have 150 million sensors in the world where we stand at the gate protecting our customers. So if I can find a way of infusing AI at the gate and taking all these vulnerabilities and finding a way to protect you, I'm good. I don't have to chain the gatekeeper because there's no Claude endpoint agent that exists out there. There's no OpenAI endpoint agent that exists out there that I can replace Palo Alto or the other people in the space with. The problem is not at the gate. What happens is, despite all the perimeter defense you put in, things come in, things leak in, people make mistakes, people passwords get breached, there are vulnerabilities people get in through. Then the question becomes, all right, oh shit, the bad actor's in my infrastructure. How quickly can I find him and get rid of him or her? That becomes an AI task. That becomes the same conversation we're having so far is I need context, I need intelligence, I need to know what this means. So creating that context, that intelligence within the enterprise of what this intrusion means and how to protect against it becomes a challenge. This is the AI cybersecurity challenge. Something we, again, this is not trying to here to pitch my book, but we spent 5 years trying to build that capability inside enterprises. So in the net, it ends up being an accelerant. Does that mean I have everything I need? Not everything. Does that mean I need to get AI models to start helping me? Yes. So we're going to infuse more AI into our defense infrastructure.
Do you think it is good or bad to have government intervention when you have models as powerful as we have them?
I think we're going through a discovery process. I think this notion of guardrails has not been built robustly enough because these models seem to be easy to get past. Remember the early days when you used to read about somebody had this conversation with a model and found a way to, albeit the guardrails because it asked questions differently and the model was able to get sort of jailbroken. It became a hobby amongst people and they had all kinds of conversation with models. And it's the same challenge. How do you make sure that you can put enough guardrails around the AI model that you built to make sure it's only used for the purpose that you had? Right? That's the challenge that there is. I think the guardrail needs to get better. To the extent the government feels the guardrails aren't robust enough, it's trying to tell us that it's a national security issue, I need to go fix the guardrails. But I think it's a simple matter of trying to treat the guardrails as a real problem and solve it.
Is it possible?
I'm hoping it is.
I hope it is too. If you were starting, I spoke to one of the world's best cyber investors who will remain nameless because he asked some spicy questions too.
Oh, okay. He's questions for me?
Yeah, he asked questions for you. Right. He asked some interesting ones. But he asked, if you were to start Palo Alto Networks for a cyber company again today, starting today in the age of AI, what would you do differently that you're not doing now?
The paranoia I have, if I look at self-driving, there are broadly 2 or 3 approaches out there, right? One was, my car is not going to have a human in it. It's called Waymo, right? I'm going to keep pounding it. I'm going to keep pounding it, training it until it learns by itself to drive, and no human shall be holding the steering wheel ever when my customers are in it, right? You see it's out there. Many cities have Waymos. I saw one down the street from here. So that's one way of doing product development. And what you do is every edge case gets discovered. You build training around it. Every experience is a learning experience. You build training around it. You keep training it. You keep training it. You keep training. Get to a point of total autonomy. The other version is I'm going to start taking segments of the driving and start automating that segment where I get really comfortable. So my car drives 50% of the time. The other 50% the human gets in on the edge cases. That's my Tesla, right? Tesla used to drive just the highway for me. Now it's getting better at other streets. It's slowly getting better. But still, I'm holding the steering wheel very often. It'll tell me you're not paying attention. Look at this. Look at the camera. Otherwise, you can't drive. And I know FSD gets better, but that's another way to get there. Okay, I'm going to keep training. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to start working the edge cases as my business continues to evolve. The third one is I'll infuse some degree of self-driving into my car because I've come from the traditional model of having amazing cars, great V8 engines, beautiful, sleek cars, and I'm not into the technology aspect. Or you see them out there on the street. They have all 3 versions out there. My fear is, do we all need to stop and start thinking the Waymo way as enterprises, or is there room for the Tesla approach to self-driving in our businesses, right? Because we have an existing set of customers to satisfy who are not going to take kindly from me saying, guess what? I changed my product. It's right 80% of the time. And I'm going to take another 3 years to train the product to be right 100% of the time, right? So my fear is, am I pivoting fast enough in my product strategy that over time, my products become more self-driving than they are today? Or do I need to go faster? And can I get there by automating or AI enabling certain parts of my product where I can apply the models that are capable to do certain aspects of cybersecurity today and keep doing the others through machine learning and managing edge cases through machine learning? Or is it time for me to pivot? My view right now is you have to have the Tesla approach if you're an enterprise that is building AI-infused capability. But you can't have the approach of traditional car manufacturers, which are trying to stick a little bit of AI and sort of AI washing their cars and saying, I'll get there eventually.
Would you like to do the Brian Armstrong, Jack Dorsey? I often think a good question is, what would you like to do, but you're held back from doing?
Different courses for different horses, right? I don't think in our business we can go implode the organization because I don't think the underlying application software is there. I don't think all the things that we've talked about that we need to get done are ready from an AI software perspective. I don't want to build a lot of software that is proprietary to me for things that should be available for everyone. I don't want to build an AI marketing stack. I don't want to build an AI HR stack. I don't want to build an AI ERP stack. I'm hoping that somebody goes and does that much more effectively and efficiently for the world at large. Perhaps it's the next iteration of Salesforce, the next iteration of SAP, or the next iteration of Workday that is going to help me do that, because I do believe it needs to become more intelligent. We talked about it needs to be more AI enabled or AI controlled. I do want to build things that are particular to me, where I have all the information, all the intelligence, the context, and the memory from an organizational perspective. I think the right way to get there is to hold people accountable. And I run a meeting twice a week now called AIAIO. It's kind of funny. It's like the old McDonald had a farm. AIAIO, because everybody in my company wants to do AI. So if we use it as a converging function, as a function to do brainstorming across my team, how do we think about this? Why are we building this? Because I have to AI.
What happens in that meeting?
Everybody comes and shares how they're adapting to the new world of AI. What are they doing from a product development perspective? How are they thinking about it? How are they including agents in their products? How are they going to go build the backend infrastructure? How do we think about how are they using tokens? How do we think about the capability of resources? Remember, for me to transform a 21,000 people organization, I have to get the hearts and minds of the leaders to make sure we're all swimming in the same direction or pulling in the same direction. So this is my way of ensuring the top 15 or 20 technical leaders in my company are pulling in the same direction, whatever the direction be. And as you know, if there's no expert, then a group of smart people do better than an expert. I don't think there's an expert for future enterprise design yet, in terms of here's the blueprint. Like you said, as a VC, you're saying, holy shit, where's the value going to accrue? Is it going to be in models? Is it going to be in the application layer? Trust me, we have to have a point of view on that stuff and what's going to emerge in the future before I can start transforming my company. Like, how should I build my products?
Are your leaders AI pilled? I interview CROs as well, some of the best CROs, some of the best CPOs. And in all honesty, the bigger the company, the less AI pilled, AI maxed they are. To the extent where one the other day, a public company doing $5 billion plus in revenue, CRO goes, we don't have that AI talent internally, but we'll bring it in.
Yeah, I discovered this in 2004 when I was in Europe. I ran Google Europe. I used to go around and meet CEOs. There was this fad where CEOs would hire this 24-year-old Sherpa. They were called the web Sherpas or internet Sherpas, right? It's like chief internet officer. Remember those companies had chief internet officers at one point in time?
I was 8, so no.
You're 8, you don't remember. Well, we've seen this movie before. And sometimes it's fine to have seen this movie before. And the task of the chief internet officer was to make sure the organization was ready for the internet, because I'm too busy in my traditional business and I don't know who Amazon is, I don't know who Google is. So this wonderful 24-year-old who understands this stuff is going to help be my savior. And then CEOs would wash their hands about the internet because they have this wonderful team of people who would be frustrated because they can't get anything done because nobody's giving them attention. The risk of that happening is true with AI as well. I'm so busy doing what I did yesterday, I have no time to think about tomorrow. So meet my chief AI officer, who's probably a researcher at some amazing university before and has low execution skills. So until I can get my leadership to understand and agree the extent of the AI challenge and the AI opportunity, we're not going to make progress.
What specifically are you not focusing on today because of the burdens of today's problem?
Look, everything. When you go to talk to a product manager in any large company, I'm pretty sure they have a product roadmap that exists in their heart, in their hands. It says 6 months or 12 months long. I can go fix all these things. I'm like, what's interesting is in the 6 to 12 month thing, there's nothing called agents in there. How come the world is talking about agentifying everything and your product roadmap doesn't have that? I'll get to it once I get this done because this is what customers want right now. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. How do I get you to do more agentic work? How many people are you going to free up doing development the way you're doing it today so I can use that excess resource to go make new things happen? So those are all important conversations. I can have them one at a time across 14 or 20 people, or I can have them twice a week with them and people demonstrate how they are. And what's fascinating, remember, You have to make sure your leaders are ambitious. You have to make sure they're competitive. You have to make sure they want to win. You have to make sure that they have a learning mindset. When they watch their peers around them do cool shit, they want to show up with cool shit the next time. So for me, it's getting 14 people together and saying, hey, Harry, tell me today, what have you done for AI in the last 3 days since I last talked to you in your organization? And whatever motivates you, whether the fear of Nikesh asking you 3 days again what you did, or your sort of inherent learning ambition, or it's your team pushing you, you will show up with something. And then you'll see what the other guys are doing. You'll say, oh my God, I'm doing a lot or I'm not doing enough. So it creates a little bit of Darwinian competition amongst them. It creates this urge to go embrace this new technology. And I think hopefully I get 14 people fully motivated, and then they go do that to the next set of people. Because I need to transform from the top down, not from the bottom up on this topic. There's a bottom up experimentation, of course, right? People using tokens to see who's really good at it. That allows me to find the best talent. So you've got to find a way of transforming 20,000 people over the next 3 years in that direction.
Bottoms up, top down. You got to get into these organizations. That sounds naughty.
So, I wish I was a VC. I could sit down to a podcast and talk about stuff. And
clearly, I need to get out more when that's. I just sit in the stock room all day, Nikesh. I'm sorry.
Good.
The question is, how do you get in effectively, and how do you get implementation and adoption done well? I've had guests on the show say before, you cannot do enterprise adoption without FDEs today. And then I've had Matan come on the show, our friend from Factory, and say, if you need FDEs, you have a shit product. Bold. And I love Matan. And I think it was a great clip. So grateful for the virality that came with that.
Okay. Is that went viral?
That did very well. Yeah. Cheyenne from Palantir then obviously chimed in. And,
of course.
My job is to create a discussion.
They want to see your Anthropic bill keep going up because they need to not go broke when the VC subsidy runs out, or when they finally can do an IPO and cash out. The drive for Anthropic and OpenAI to try to survive to IPO. And that's a question, because OpenAI has got a lot of debts coming due in 2026 that they put off for about 3 years, and they're all coming due this year. But they're not supplying a compelling product is fundamentally the problem. Because if agentic coding worked as well as the boosters say, this would not be a question.
Hi, I'm Isaac, and today on the Tech Report is author and host of Pivot to AI, David Gerard. Thanks for coming back.
Good afternoon.
So the cost efficiency of AI is becoming a bit of an impassable sticking point for the industry as enterprise customers start to question if they're getting enough from it to warrant the price at the same time that the average amount of tokens being used is increasing. If I can ask you to sort of embody an executive keen to use AI in their company, how close do you think we are to a tipping point where the cost of using AI is sort of outweighing the value it provides?
I think we're getting there. They're just not admitting it, because there's a key point, which is this stuff doesn't work very well, and it's sort of selling itself on the future promises. We don't want to be left behind, and it'll be great tomorrow and next model, bro, and all those other things that people say when their thing is a bit of a failure. So it's getting expensive and the bills are coming due. And with obvious things like Anthropic keeps ratcheting its prices up in a fairly obscure manner. Microsoft comes straight out and says, we're going to charge you 10 times as much now. And it's like, what? And that's the sort of thing that makes a CFO sit up and go, it's costing how much? You sure we can't do it cheaper? Hire a developer, perhaps, you know. So I think that businesses are thinking very much along the lines of, wait a minute, what are we getting for this? What are we getting for it today, not in 6 months?
Can you just briefly outline or kind of spell out why modern AI use is so expensive and getting more expensive?
Well, it was always expensive. That is, it's been sold as a loss since it launched. OpenAI and Anthropic, the largest vendors, basically always were subsidizing the price from their venture capital funding. The OpenAI price of $20 a month, the first for the basic paid open ChatGPT, that was always a number that Sam Altman plucked out the air because it sounded like a good price to charge people, which is fine in the loss leader stage. But then it never quite got too profitable or working well enough that people would dive in and use it anyway. So Anthropic will talk about how token prices have gone down, down, down. Tokens are so much cheaper now, but your Claude bill doesn't go down. It never goes down. Your Claude bill never goes down because that sort of bill doesn't go down. It only goes up. They're spending so much on tokens. They're trying to get... The trouble with your large language model is they're very much at the top of their S-curve of performance, where all technology goes on an S-curve. It starts off slow, it accelerates, and then it flattens out. And then if you're at the top of the curve, getting incremental improvements takes exponentially more effort. There's a great OpenAI graph from 2024 talking about the O1 model, which I don't think they ever released. It was a test model. They literally showed this on the graph. They would show that it would take exponentially more time to get small linear improvements. And I went, you're giving away the game, guys. And we're there right now. So they can only eke out slightly less bad output by spending thousands more tokens per query as they get the AI to run, or the large language model to run. They get the chatbot to talk to another chatbot. There's another 10 chatbots that review that. Then they try to construct a reasoning chain, and so on and so on and so on. It's a lot of systems checking each other for slightly better results and a lot of slightly worse ones. And it's really hard to measure this stuff too, because what are you measuring? It's like all benchmarks are fake. Like Sam Altman says that ChatGPT 5.6 Sol is 54% more efficient in agentic coding. What's that mean? What are you measuring? You're putting the 2 digits of precision number on this claim, and it's like our unicorns have 54% sharper wing feathers. It's, what are you measuring? But it doesn't help that literally all chatbot vendor benchmarks are made up. They're marketing. They're not science, they're marketing. They will often pay for the benchmarks to be made. They will often have early access to the benchmarks. And it's largely nonsensical. It's like, it is not an independent science thing because it's being paid for by the vendors. It's marketing. And I don't know what they're measuring. It's not clear. And it's all the promotion is vibes based. I feel so much faster as a coder. And then there was one study that measured this and it showed them going 19% slower. And after that, no one did another such study. So it's hard to say what's more efficient. There's guys who will swear this does wonders, than that AI is a good coder now. We all agree that AI is good at coding now. Then you get someone who's actually a developer who looks at the code and goes, this is trash. This is insane trash. You know, like when the code for Claude Code itself, the bot that writes all the code for everyone, when that leaked, There was a great thread on Mastodon by Johnny from Neuromatch. And he went through the actual code itself, going, this does things about 11 different ways and none of them work. And you've got basically the code was a series of prompts to the bot with increasingly elaborate ways trying to tell the bot not to screw up this time. It was like absolutely hilarious bit of trying to make a really long prompt of all the stuff it's done wrong before. And it's nuts. So it's quite right that the people who pay the bills and sign the checks are going, what are we buying? What are we buying? Perhaps it's the future, but is it the present? That's a question that the AI vendors aren't so keen on people asking because the present isn't all that great. You'll have a lot of people going, trust me, bro, it works amazingly. I'm so efficient. And they ask you ask them what they've got and they call you a Luddite, and it's not a convincing argument anymore.
I do want to get into more of the ChatGPT 5.6 Soul stuff, but I just briefly want to go back to the S-curve you were talking about. Because, I mean, I think it's fair to say open source kind of models are catching up with the frontier ones, and it kind of makes...
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this WCIT, the Virtual Company of Information Technology lecture in memory of past master Barney Gibbons. Firstly, a couple of thanks. Thank you to HSBC Innovation Banking for being such great supporters of this lecture. And this year, we have two extraordinary figures who have helped shape the digital age. Liveryman,
Surprised you're
Sir
allowing that,
Demis
sir.
Hassabis,
Well, that's
and
what I do,
Liveryman
yeah.
Dame Wendy Hall. Our new members, you are
Can't
both
fight it
very
here.
welcome.
Thank
To be
you.
here. Thank you.
So I was thinking about how I start this, and every video of both
water,
Demis and Wendy have their whole CD read out. And I asked Mr. Gemini, what's the best definition for Demis?
You need
So
another
Demis,
glass.
if anything is amiss here, then I would. So Demis Hassanian, one of the world's leading research labs. I'm particularly excited as well that it's in this country. And your mission is to advance AI and to apply it to major scientific and social challenges. And he built a video game called Theme Park, which combined AI with economics, and you sold 15 million copies. And that's before you even went to school. After your university, which I'm not going to regale because it's a very long list of things you did, you built AlphaGo and defeated the world champion Go player and AlphaFold, which revolutionized protein structure prediction. You are multi-domain. You combine being a computer scientist, a neuroscientist, an entrepreneur, a former video game designer, and you bring insights in multiple fields in AI research. And we are very pleased to have you here, Sir Demis. Dame Wendy Hall, one of Britain's most distinguished computer scientists, a global pioneer in web science, cross-disciplinary study on how web shapes society and vice versa. Regius, professor of computer science at the University of Southampton, and one of the first researchers to undertake major work in multimedia, hypermedia systems. A founding leader of the Web Science Trust, along with Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who is actually an honorary member here
I know
too,
he's.
Yes, we both know him well.
to advance the understanding of the World Wide Web and its social impact. The first woman to become professor of engineering in Southampton, and a former president of the BCS and the ACM, which is Association of Computer Machinery. You are an internationally respected voice on AI, internet governance, and data policy and digital ethics. And you are helping shape governments and institutions to think about how
Bye.